Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Awakening Podcast. This is your host, Cosmic Colleen, back with another episode 276. However, last week I realized I think I'm one behind. I think I've been labeling it because where the Podbean where I upload my podcast episodes to, I was telling me I'm one behind. So I got to go through that tonight. So it's either truly 275 and maybe 276. There is a lot happening with Venus over these next 7 to 9 days. I wrote this Saturday night, so that really began over this past weekend. So my Venus placements, Taurus, Libra, are going to be feeling a lot over this next week's energy. This, as well as my cardinal placements, the astrology for this week is going to be Taurus and Libra, and then Cancer, Capricorn, and Aries. You guys are going to be feeling the energy the most, especially coming off of this full moon in Aries. Even people with like a Mars or a Venus in the first house as well. And that's my placement. So it could be a Taurus moon, Libra moon. Listen up, guys. So Wednesday, the 8th, Venus and Virgo sextiled. Okay, that was already last week. I was like, wait, did I just do these notes? What was I doing last week? I guess I started my notes last week. So let's talk about that. Last week we had Wednesday the 8th, Venus and Virgo sextiling Jupiter and Cancer. Saturday, this past Saturday the 11th, Venus and Virgo opposite Saturn retrograde. Monday the 13th, that was yesterday, Venus will ingress, and it did already ingress into Libra at 5:18 p.m. and later in the evening, Neptune retrograde. It went opposite Neptune retrograde in Aries. On Tuesday the 14th at 10:09 p.m., that is tonight, Venus and Libra will trine Pluto in Aquarius. Friday the 14th, Sun and Libra will square Jupiter in Cancer. And then next Tuesday, the 21st, we have the new moon in Libra. The same day, Mercury enters its shadow phase in Scorpio, where we will begin the Mercury retrograde. I actually think we begin the Mercury retrograde, I have to double check, in Sagittarius, and then it retrogrades back into Scorpio. But we're beginning that shadow period before the actual retrograde. So, man, that full moon in Aries was a little more surprisingly chaotic than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I feel like with Aries, with Mars, there's always like these curveballs that can happen whenever we have full moons in one of Mars' signs or any interaction happening, any action happening with Mars. And I know that was last week, so most of us have already moved on from that energy, but I want to talk a little bit about it. We see the full moon in a collective around us. And then for people who had those cardinal placements or Mars world placements, we felt it a little more within us. There was a really wild and slightly reckless energy the Saturday before we had that full moon, which was last Tuesday, Monday into Tuesday. It was very sudden, jerky. It didn't make sense. Type of stuff was happening all of a sudden. I pulled into Wawa Saturday, and these like kids like almost hit me in the weirdest way on purpose. It was like, and then they were like laughing and making fun of me. It was very confusing. So it was kind of things like that all of a sudden showed up, as well as the darkness talk, as I talked about on my last episode. So there also was a battle that came, especially all last week, to who was right when it came to like messages or a miscommunication through messages. But it was a little bit like, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, right. I said this. No, you didn't. You said that. There was like this miscommunication, but this very stubborn energy around that and the receiving of messages. The full moon in Aries, it definitely brought us direct or even harsh communication to add to that. Someone had to be delivered the message of raw honesty, even if it was ugly. Libra, my Libra placements, and you know, that Libra energy doesn't usually drive home their point the way an Aries does. Those two signs are oppositions to each other. So one goes about things with peace, Libra, and will back off, will try to say things to bring balance, to bring peace, to bring harmonious interactions. Again, it wants to be a people pleaser, wants people to be happy. The other, Aries, love my Aries, is often, very direct and straightforward, and usually with conflict, not afraid to go with conflict, not afraid to move forward with conflict, not afraid to approach things with conflict, where again, Libras, they know how to bullshit in order to keep the peace. And Aries don't know how to do that. They can bullshit, but they don't give a fuck about keeping the peace. Not the way Libras do. So the energy definitely showed up like that. And now you kind of see these two parallels to Libra and Aries. which this moon cycle has been going back and forth through. And I talked a lot again about last week of, Libra is not really wanting to, even though it begins the descent into darkness, not necessarily wanting to dive into that darkness or go directly headfirst the way Aries will. So Venus is now in Libra, one of her home domiciles. She rules over the earth sign of Taurus and the air sign of Libra. So I am loving that we're having that new moon with her there in her own sign. This is beginning a new cycle with Venus. This is the first, you could say, regular new moon in Libra since we ended the eclipse series in Libra and Aries last year. That was still a solar eclipse in Libra. So this is definitely a rebirth for my Libra placements. We really were in it after we ended the eclipse season, but I'm saying now that we're coming through with this cycle with Venus being there with this new moon, it's definitely the true rebirth. The harmonious new chapter is beginning. This is a you got to the other side lesson, and you're living in the wisdom of the eclipse season of what you guys experienced for the last 2 years, mostly last year, 2024, 2023, and a little bit of 2022. So looking back on those things with a different mindset, ready for the change that this shift will bring. Dun, dun, dun. Starting since yesterday and leading up to the new moon next Tuesday, the Venus themes that start coming up this week will be ushering in a new cycle or a rebirth with Venus ruled things. And those Venus ruled things are love, self-love, family love, especially with our female family members, self-confidence or appearance. So changing something in your appearance, or at least accepting something in your appearance in a new way that brings you self-confidence and self-esteem. Like, yeah, bitch, I got this. I try to tell people this. The key to looking good is confidence. I'm telling you what, it is a huge difference. That's why we look at a wide variety of beauty that all looks different and say that's beautiful. But if you look at it like just beauty that's out in front of us, it's matched with confidence. Everything is an energy. So this is a time to really embrace your confidence. What are you most confident about? What are your favorite things about yourself? And harness that. Live in that. And again, you're either making the changes you wanted to change, or you're appreciating yourself a little bit more with this. The beauty or the aesthetic that we surround ourselves in our daily lives, especially with this new moon or the daily environment. Maybe you're getting your home set up in a new way, making it look prettier, making it look comfortable. That's one thing I've learned as an adult, like how much that I didn't understand as a kid. Maybe just my mercurial mind. I was always like, my home was always sort of in chaos everywhere. Is like setting up a nice aesthetic in your house actually makes a difference. Like, not only do I like to keep things clean, I love candles and I love my plants everywhere. And that aesthetic really feels good. And we're moving stuck energy out. So this is a time that you want to move that shit out and remodel the inside. Not necessarily remodel, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like redecorate, just bring a nice ambience in, especially that will bring peace and harmony into your house. Get some sage, baby. So the beauty, the aesthetic in our daily environment, having harmony with family members again and enjoying family members again. That's for the general, but as well as my cardinal placements. Now, for my cardinal placements, again, with the full moon in Aries, there was uncomfortable and rather quick merging of darkness that came out of y'all. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, like I said, my cardinal placements, go back and listen to it so you can have a deeper understanding of what I was talking about with this darkness. So maybe the darkness comes up different ways, and I talk about it like it's not all bad. Darkness is layered. It's parts of ourselves coming out of our psyche. We don't understand. We don't know. We have to figure out. It's parts that we stay hidden, blah, blah, blah. But it could have been, I'll give you an example of mine, like how you handle your children. I know that, for one, I yelled at my kids in a big way on Saturday night and on Sunday leading up. Like, it wasn't good. Some things come out of me, and it got to a level that I don't like getting to. I have really practiced staying calm, and I do practice staying calm and not reacting. And I know parents listening know what I'm talking about, but your kids will test you to the ultimate. They're little versions of you testing you in the same way as you tested your parents, only we're not necessarily totally healed or changed of that. I, most of the time, try to show up with a lot of patience and understand that they can't control a lot of things they're doing while teaching them how to learn how to control it. But sometimes I lose my shit, especially with two boys that are hyperactive and kind of crazy, and they have very different, in some ways, emotional upbringings. So It has been somewhat of a challenge, but they can push and they can push and they can push. But when I do lose my shit, it is often around a full moon or has some Mars-like things happening. A full moon in Scorpio, a full moon in Aries will definitely have brought it out when I look back at different times or different histories. But I lost my shit. Now, here's the ultimate teacher, right? I have been able to reflect. So there was the darkness. The darkness came out in me within my children, and I was able to reflect and change some things. And I said, you know what? I really hate when I get to this level. My kids are starting to get old enough to also hate it and learn for themselves how not to push me there. But we learned a new routine. I said, how can I set us up for success so I don't get like this? Which means I had to spend the last few days in my house, like rearranging, getting things in order again. You know, I constantly live in a state of order and not order and all around, but I had to bring in the focus. I had to show up repeatedly with them and making them do things, you know, not giving them 3 hours on an iPad and then expecting them to like sit and do their homework and not be, you know, impulsive. So I really had to lay down some ground rules for a new routine. And now leading this week into, last week was still a little rough, but, you know, we were in that challenging period of where I was really trying and they were trying. This week, though, now headed towards the Libra new moon, this week has already been such a nice energy. Like I said yesterday, like the day before, I've been really showing up well in the routine, doing what I need to do and order for them and to help them along. And it has just been very beautiful in this calm new routine we sort of have reflected on. So that's where the things come. The darkness came. Now this week begins the hope. This week begins the shift from shining light on that darkness. Now the good stuff comes from that. And already my kids have been much more well-behaved. I've been calmer, and the new routine, the new shifts, the new paradigms we had to bring within our world has been showing up very nicely. Now, again, with children, it's always shifting. I'm sure next month there will be something else that will come up, and I'll have to work with that. But for now, we will bathe in this Libra glory. So it could show up in your relationships with your kids, with your parents, partner, friendship, work, the darkness, even just your own thoughts, your own relationship with yourself, right? That's our biggest relationship, your own relationship with yourself, you know, the subconscious to the conscious. The darkness arose and maybe through conflict, and again, conflict within yourself, but now you're feeling the solution, you're moving forward as we march towards this new moon in Libra. Again, overall, this is all bringing harmonious new beginnings. This secondly is going to come through as our self-esteem and approval that we need as well. Like, it's going to come through, like, we're going to give ourselves our own self-esteem, our own approval. We're not really caring anymore. I'm sure some of you broke through last week seeking the approval of someone or something or a group in a certain way. And you're like, you know what? I don't really need to give a shit about what people think, because we don't. We die with ourselves. That's all we should care about. And those very, very few closest people that are close to our hearts. So now, once you did that, the other level of darkness is breaking through, no longer seeking approval of others. There's a new level of authenticity I talked about in last week's episode brewing in you now, because when you do that, you bring yourself closer to alignment of what's meant for you. So that stuff that got brought to light last week, like I mentioned, is already beginning to align with us this week. So authenticity equals alignment. Remember, if you feel out of alignment, think about how you are not being authentic to who you are. Understand that. What are you not doing? That's usually when we know we're out of alignment, we're not being true to or authentic to something within ourselves. So you will, this week as well, connect with people where it just feels right. These connections are going to feel effortlessly. And don't discount tiny conversations and connections. I was just talking, you know, like kind of like when you meet someone in a grocery store and you just chat and it was fun. And, you know, for that 5 minutes, you guys had a great, you'll never see that person again. Maybe you will. But for those 5 minutes, you both just showed up purely, and you're like, wow, that was a great conversation. So people don't connect like that anymore. I mean, in this area, Philadelphia, it's always rush, rush, rush. The general energy is rush, rush, rush. And since COVID, no one really connects anymore one-on-one. No one talks. No one says, hey, how's your day? What's happening? And I think there's something really powerful and beautiful with conversations with a stranger that you may never see again. I was just talking with a friend who was away last week, and she was sharing with me her fun and awesome connections with random people she met at a pool while she was away. And it really had me thinking some of the most pleasant, interesting conversations and connections I have had that stick with me were random people on vacation, and some have lasted 20 minutes. Some have lasted 3 hours. I remember being in Italy, Sorrento, with this couple who just got married on a honeymoon, and we sat out on like, the beaches are kind of weird there, so it goes out on a rocky, not balcony, but little dock thing, and you sit there for 7 hours. And we just sat there and chatted with them for 7 hours. I will never see them again, but I remember so much about their life. And that conversation with them was, it was very powerful. So that's that. And again, that feels very Venus and Libra, doesn't it, though? Like having amazing conversations with people on vacation. So Venus and Libra brings effortless connections. With a trine and Pluto, though, these are deeply felt, understood, and embracing connections. And so the new connections that begin this week into next week will be something that lasts. Remember that connections that start to maybe percolate, is that the right word for this moment? In this week, they will last. This can bring a really strong energy with our creative energy, creative projects. We're going to jumpstart or restart within us. There's going to be a lot of free thoughts and creative juices flowing, and those creative thoughts are flowing. There's a really powerful connection within ourselves with our creativity beginning this week as well. This energy, let's take it a little what is it? Like not PG, PG-13 or rated R. That was it. I almost called it rated F. This energy is going to also be on the sexier side. With Mercury and Mars in Scorpio, really lean into your sexual energy. Use it to create, unlock your inner power, your desires, then into the energy, then into that. And it will naturally feel very kind of sexual, especially for those of you who are tuned into it. So even use a Kundalini meditation to activate if you feel like you want to use this time to tie into your sexuality or your sexual self a little bit more, or and again, that adds to that power, that confidence within yourself. I love, it can be, when you unleash the Kundalini, just wait. So definitely look into that on your own if you're not sure what that is before maybe activating that. But for this new moon added into that Libra, look up meditations for self-love, self-confidence, Kundalini. If you want to activate some Kundalini, baby, do an activity that makes you feel good, because that will just add to the good feelings that are happening now. You're already feeling good, so that's just going to add to it. It's funny, how could it's funny because, once how good it feels when you bring the darkness to light, like I said last week, freedom looks good on you, baby. I'm also talking about freedom of our mind. Bringing stuff out of our psyche last week brought us freedom of the mind, leading us to authenticity. We're constantly being trapped in our own thinking, for better or for worse. Most of the time, everything outside of ourselves that isn't happening is because of our own thinking, 99.9% of the times, whether you want to go there or not. So these are good times when things are working out. It seems to be easier to break through paradigms, to have new beliefs, because something outside of us that seems out of our control, but isn't, is working for us. So stay open to changing your paradigm, especially when things are bad, which is what hopefully you guys did last week when some shit showed up with the full moon in Aries. You were able to change your paradigm, change your thinking in that moment. That's now leading and reaping the good work and the good things that are coming for you this week. So remember that you can change your paradigm. During this week, I want you to reflect on the paradigms that allow you to stay stuck where you are, you're thinking. The I don't believe in myself, the I don't deserve, the I can't get there, the I can't do that. You can. That is a mental block, and we're going to use this week to move past that mental block and, again, shift into new harmonious paradigms that bring you all the good vibe, baby, all those good vibes. You are changing your mindset, and guess what? When you stay in the hard mindsets, that does not help you. Staying negatively, people are like, well, I can't do it. I'm not going to give myself fake confidence. Well, have you ever not heard fake it till you make it? Because that is how you work. You have to change your brain patterns. All right. I love you guys. Enjoy the Venus harmonious actions and reactions and the beautiful Venus bubbly things that are going to show up this week. I'm trying to think of like good Venus words for that because it will be feeling good, and we're going to have a nice week next week with this new moon in Libra. My cardinal placements, this is a really beautiful new beginning for you guys. I love you. If you like this episode, send it to a friend, send it to Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and Libra that you may know, or maybe even another Venus ruled person, a Taurus as well. I love you all. Rate, review, subscribe. That is the best way you can help this podcast. And thank you for everything you guys are constantly doing. Love you all, and goodbye.